"I speak 9 languages," the 14-year-old daughter of the black cleaning lady declared, her voice steady and fearless. The billionaire laughed, a cold, mocking laugh, shaking his head. 9 languages? Ha! But no one could have imagined what came next. Within minutes, armed only with her words and unstoppable knowledge, the young girl would outsmart the richest man in the room and bring his empire to its knees. The Manhattan skyline glittered like a crown of steel and glass as the elevator doors slid open on the 65th floor. Grace Johnson clutched her cleaning bucket tightly, her palms damp with sweat. She had worked in this office for nearly 5 years, but today was different. Today, she had made the mistake of bringing her daughter Danielle Johnson, just 14, stepped nervously beside her. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished marble floor, her school backpack slung over one shoulder. She had insisted on coming, not because she wanted to skip school, but because she wanted to see what kind of man her mother worked for every night. That man was Hassan al-Mansouri, oil tycoon worth billions. Hassan had built an empire of steel, energy, and money. He was a man feared by his competitors and admired by his allies. His office, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows and decorated with Italian marble, was less a workplace and more a throne room, and Hassan sat at its center like a king, lounging in a $15,000 leather chair. When he noticed Grace and the girl, his sharp eyes narrowed. "Grace, who's this?" "My daughter, sir," Grace said softly. I didn't have anyone to watch her today," Hassan smirked. "Ah, the next generation of cleaning staff?" Danielle's cheeks flushed, but she didn't lower her eyes. Instead, she stood tall, her voice calm but steady. "Actually, sir, I plan to be something else." Hassan leaned back in amusement. "Oh, and what might that be, girl?" Danielle looked him directly in the eye. "A linguist. I speak 9 languages." The office fell silent for a moment. Then Hassan burst into laughter. It wasn't the laughter of joy, but the cruel laughter of someone who thought he had just been handed the best joke of the year. 9 languages? Hassan roared. "Ah, girl, you can barely speak English." 9 languages, she says. Ha! His laughter echoed through the penthouse office like the roar of a predator amused by its prey. Grace felt her face burn with shame. "Danielle," she whispered urgently, "apologize to Mr. al-Mansouri," but Danielle didn't. Her voice stayed calm even though her hands tightened around the straps of her backpack. "I don't need to apologize for the truth." That made Hassan laughs even harder. He slammed his hand on the marble desk, tears forming at the corner of his eyes from amusement. "This is the best entertainment I've had all week." "Tell me then, girl wonder, what are these 9 languages you supposedly speak?" Danielle inhaled deeply. She had grown used to being underestimated. The daughter of a cleaning lady, living in the Bronx, attending an underfunded public school. But she had promised herself long ago never to let humiliation silence. Her English, Spanish, French, German, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Italian, and Portuguese. Hassan's laughter stopped for just a second. Something about the way Danielle pronounced each word, crisp, flawless, confident, made him pause. But only for a second. "Liar," Hassan said coldly, turning back to his desk. "Grace, your daughter has a wild imagination. Perhaps instead of bringing her here, you should take her to a psychiatrist." Grace lowered her head, her heart aching. She had endured years of this, the insults, the underestimation, the quiet humiliation of being treated as invisible. But this was worse, watching her daughter mocked, cut deeper than any wound she had ever carried. "Mom," Danielle said softly, touching her arm. "It's okay," but Hassan wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair, enjoying the moment, savoring the power. "You know what I think, Grace? Your girl is jealous of my executive's children. They go to the best private schools in New York. They have tutors, resources, everything. So she invents fantasies to feel special." Danielle's calm voice cut through the room like a blade. "Sir, do you speak Arabic?" Hassan frowned. "Of course I do." "It's my native language," Danielle's eyes glimmered. Then she spoke, not in broken phrases, not in tourist Arabic, but in flawless, formal classical Arabic. Her tone carried weight, precision, and elegance. The silence that followed was heavier than the skyscraper itself. For the first time in years, Hassan al-Mansouri didn't know how to laugh. For a long moment, the room stood frozen. Hassan al-Mansouri, a man who commanded oil fields, skyscrapers and politicians, found himself staring at a teenager in worn sneakers who had just spoken his mother tongue better than some of his own executives. Grace shifted nervously beside her daughter, whispering, "Danielle, please don't." She feared that her boldness would cost them her mother's job, but Danielle kept her chin high. "You doubted me, sir. I thought it was only fair to let you hear for yourself." Hassan's face hardened. He wasn't used to being challenged, least of all by a 14-year-old black girl whose mother scrubbed his floors. "One lucky sentence doesn't make you a linguist," he snapped. "Any child can memorize a line." Danielle didn't flinch. She calmly switched tongues. "¿De veras piensa que estoy mini-trend?" she asked in flawless Spanish. Hassan's secretary, seated in the corner with a notepad, gasped. She was Cuban-born and had spent her life in New York. Yet even she could hear the perfection in Danielle's accent. Before Hassan could respond, Danielle turned again, her voice flowing into French. "Monsieur, ce n'est pas un jeu." "C'est la vérité." Grace's jaw fell open. She had heard her daughter practicing before, whispering words into her phone, mimicking accents, listening to podcasts, but she had never heard Danielle speak with such fire, such conviction. Hassan slammed a fist on his desk. "Enough!" His pride was stinging. "Do you think I will be impressed by parlor tricks? You picked up phrases from YouTube, nothing more." Danielle's eyes sharpened. She had expected this. She had been underestimated her entire life, from teachers who told her she wasn't gifted to classmates who mocked her Bronx accent. She carried all those humiliations inside her like sparks, waiting for the right moment to ignite. Without warning, she turned to Hassan's bodyguard, a broad-shouldered man standing silently by the glass wall. "Вы понимаете, о чем я говорю?" she asked him in flawless Russian. The guard blinked, stunned. His hand instinctively rose to his chest. "Da?" "Yes, I understand," he said slowly, his accent heavy. The secretary dropped her pen. Grace covered her mouth. Hassan's smirk faltered. Danielle kept going, her voice steady, flowing from one language to the next. Mandarin, Italian, Portuguese. Each one poured out with clarity and precision. Not rehearsed lines, but full sentences. Each crafted in real time. When she finally returned to English, the office felt different. "Sir," she said quietly, "you laughed because you thought a girl like me, a black girl, the daughter of a cleaning lady, could never hold something powerful inside her. But power doesn't come from where you're born. It comes from what you choose to build." Grace's eyes brimmed with tears. She had scrubbed these floors on her knees, invisible and silent, never once daring to speak back. And now her daughter was standing where she had never dared to stand, in front of the billionaire himself, unshaken. For the first time in his career, Hassan al-Mansouri had no words. His mouth opened, then closed, his pride battling with the evidence in front of him. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, his smile forced. "Interesting," he said coldly, "but languages are cheap. They do not make you powerful." Danielle's eyes didn't waver. "Neither does money if you don't use it right." The air crackled. The secretary stared at Danielle like she was witnessing history. Even the bodyguard shifted uncomfortably, unsure whose side he should stand on. Hassan, however, wasn't ready to surrender. His pride demanded one last move. "Very well," he said slowly. "If you're so talented, prove it in front of people who matter, tomorrow. My guests are flying in from Europe and the Middle East. Let's see how long you last in front of them." Grace gasped. "Sir, please," but Hassan cut her off with a wave. His smirk returned. "If your daughter fails, Grace, you'll never work in this building again." Danielle's heart pounded. She knew what was at stake. Her mother's job, their survival, their dignity. She met Hassan's gaze head-on. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." The next evening, Grace smoothed Danielle's braids with trembling hands. "Baby, please. Maybe we shouldn't do this," she whispered. "What if you make a mistake? What if he fires me?" Danielle touched her mother's hands gently. "Mom, he already decided we don't belong. If I stay quiet, nothing changes. But if I speak, maybe everything does." Her words steadied Grace, though her heart still ached with fear. When they arrived at the skyscraper, the lobby was different. Black cars lined the curb, drivers in dark suits waiting outside. Inside the penthouse office, the atmosphere pulsed with power. Hassan had gathered what he called his circle of giants, and international bankers, oil partners, diplomats, and executives flown in from across the globe. There were men in tailored Italian suits, women in elegant silk dresses, translators standing by with earpieces. The air smelled of expensive cologne, leather, and arrogance, and there, at the center of it all, sat Hassan al-Mansouri, sipping dark Arabian coffee from a gold-trimmed cup, smiling like a hunter who had already set his trap. Grace and Danielle stood at the edge of the room, feeling the weight of every stare. A few guests frowned, whispering. "Who are they?" one European banker muttered. Hassan rose, his voice booming across the penthouse. "Gentlemen, ladies, before we begin tonight's negotiations, I have some entertainment for you. This girl claims she speaks 9 languages. I thought we might all enjoy a laugh." Laughter rippled through the room. Grace's face burned with shame, but Danielle stepped forward, her chin lifted high. "Entertainment?" she said softly. "No, truth." The room hushed. Hassan smirked and gestured toward a French diplomat seated near the window. "Very well. Start here." Danielle turned to the diplomat and spoke with poise. "Monsieur, je suis honoré de vous rencontrer ce soir. La langue française est une musique que j'ai apprise en écoutant la radio, en lisant vos poètes." The diplomat blinked, then broke into a smile. "Magnifique," he murmured. "Her accent is Parisian." Hassan's smirk tightened. He pointed at a Chinese businessman next. Without hesitation, Daniel shifted. "晚上好，很荣幸见到您。我学中文是因为我相信语言是打开世界的钥匙." "Comte." The man's eyes widened. "Perfect tones," he said in awe. "Even my own daughter struggles with them." Now the room stirred. The laughter had stopped. Hassan's guests leaned forward, curious. Danielle moved from one language to another with fluid grace. Russian for the oil magnate, Italian for the banker, Arabic for the Emirati investor. Each word struck like lightning, silencing doubt after doubt. Her voice grew stronger, her confidence building with each tongue. She was no longer the cleaning lady's daughter. She was a force standing in the heart of power, commanding attention without wealth or title. Grace's eyes filled with tears. For years she had been invisible in this very room. Now her daughter was shining brighter than the chandeliers above, but Hassan was not done. His pride boiled. He slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough games. A parrot repeats sounds. Power is not in words. It is in action, in control, in money. Do you think these men will bow to a little girl just because she knows their languages?" Danielle's eyes locked with his. "No," she said firmly. "But they'll listen, and that's where real power begins," the guests murmured. Some nodded. A few even clapped softly. Hassan's jaw tightened. He felt the ground shifting beneath him, and he hated it. Then Danielle pulled something from her backpack, a small black recorder. Grace gasped. Hassan's eyes narrowed. Danielle pressed play. Suddenly, Hassan's own voice filled the room, a secret recording she had captured the day before, when he mocked her and her mother. His cruel laughter echoed, followed by his words. "Grace, your daughter has a wild imagination. Perhaps instead of bringing her here, you should take her to a psychiatrist." The room fell silent. Hassan's face drained of color. His guests looked at him with raised eyebrows, some even shaking their heads in disapproval. Danielle's voice was steady. "You asked if words have power. Tonight, they'll decide if yours destroy you or save you." The trap had been reversed. The silence in the penthouse was suffocating. Hassan al-Mansouri, the billionaire who silenced governments with a phone call, now sat frozen while his own mocking words replayed from Danielle's recorder. The French diplomat broke the silence first. He leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. "Hassan, you invited us here for business. Instead, we see you laughing at a child's gift. I find that disappointing." The Chinese businessman nodded. "In my country, a girl with such discipline would be honored, not ridiculed." Grace clutched Danielle's hand, her heart racing. She had never seen men of such stature frown at Hassan before. Hassan forced a laugh, though his voice cracked. "Come now, gentlemen. It was harmless. A joke, nothing more." But the room wasn't convinced. Danielle stepped closer, her voice carrying strength far beyond her 14 years. "You say power is money, sir, but tonight your money bought you nothing. Not respect, not dignity, not even silence, the guests murmured in agreement. A ripple of shame passed across Hassan's face, not just because a girl had exposed him, but because she had done it in front of the very people whose approval he craved most. And then, the phones came out. The secretary, the bodyguard, even one of the bankers had recorded Danielle's performance, her flawless languages, her bold challenge, her recording of Hassan's cruelty. Within minutes, clips were spreading across private WhatsApp groups and Twitter feeds. By midnight, Danielle Johnson's voice had crossed oceans. Hashtags trended. The girl who spoke 9 languages, daughter of the cleaner, truth over money, in the Bronx. Kids at Danielle's school stared at their phones in disbelief. Was that really her? The quiet girl who always carried a dictionary in her backpack? In Paris, a news anchor replayed her French speech on live television. In Beijing, a blogger called her the girl who speaks like water flows. Even in Dubai, whispers spread, Hassan al-Mansouri, the great mogul, humbled by a teenager. Grace sat on the edge of their small couch that night, trembling as the news reports poured in. "Baby, what have you done?" Danielle, exhausted but resolute, whispered, "I told the truth, but truth has consequences." By morning, reporters swarmed the street outside their Bronx apartment, microphones shoved toward Danielle as she tried to leave for school. Cameras flashed, recording every glance, every word. "Danielle, how many languages do you really speak?" "Danielle, how did you learn them?" "Danielle, what message do you have for Mr. al-Mansouri?" Grace tried to shield her daughter, but Danielle stood firm. "My message?" she said, her voice calm even through the chaos. "Never laugh at someone just because they were born with less. You don't know what they carry inside them." That clip alone was replayed 1,000,000 times before sunset. Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Hassan seethed. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Investors questioning his judgment, partners demanding explanations, tabloids mocking him. For the first time, his wealth couldn't silence the noise. He smashed a glass against the wall, shards scattering across the marble floor. "But that girl," he hissed, "that little girl humiliated me." But what Hassan didn't know was that the world was only beginning to listen to her. By the third day, Danielle's name was everywhere. News outlets called her the girl who spoke 9 languages. Politicians tweeted about her. Schools invited her to speak, and even universities began calling Grace, offering scholarships for a girl not yet out of high school. But with the fame came the storm. Inside his penthouse, Hassan al-Mansouri paced like a lion in a cage. His empire trembled beneath the weight of ridicule. Business partners whispered that he had been exposed by a child. Stock analysts predicted drops in his company's credibility. One Arab newspaper had even run the headline, "Al-Mansouri silenced by cleaner's daughter. His pride, his image, his empire, all under attack." "Find something on her," Hassan ordered his team. "I don't care what. Dig into her life, her school, her family. Break her before she destroys me." Within hours, reporters who once praised Danielle began sniffing for scandal. Old neighbors were questioned. Classmates were asked if she had ever cheated, lied, or bullied. Teachers were cornered for comments. Grace came home to find photographers camped outside their apartment shouting questions. "Grace, did you coach your daughter? Did someone pay her? Is she really this gifted, or is it a scam?" Danielle sat at the kitchen table holding her head in her hands. For the first time, the weight of the world felt too heavy. "Mom, maybe I shouldn't have spoken up." Grace knelt beside her daughter and lifted her chin. "Baby, don't let them make you small. You didn't start this fight, but maybe you were chosen to finish it that night." Danielle opened her recorder again, not to replay Hassan's cruelty, but to record her own message. She uploaded a simple video online, her sitting at their small kitchen table, speaking directly to the world. "In the last few days, I've been called a liar, a fraud. Some say I don't deserve to be heard because I'm just a girl from the Bronx. But let me tell you something. My mother taught me to clean floors, yes. But she also taught me to never let anyone's laughter define me. I didn't learn languages to impress the rich. I learned them because every voice matters, every culture, every story. That's power money can't buy." Her voice cracked just slightly at the end, but it only made her words stronger. By morning, her video had 20 million views. Universities doubled their offers. Human rights organizations invited her to speak. Parents wrote letters saying their children had been inspired to study harder, to dream bigger, and most devastating of all, Hassan's own investors began praising Danielle publicly. One European banker tweeted, "I'd rather invest in a girl with 9 languages than a man with none but money." Hassan raged. He threw contracts across his office, cursed his staff, and shouted until his throat went raw. But nothing worked. Every attack he launched against Danielle only made her shine brighter. Finally, in a fit of desperation, he called a press conference. Standing before cameras, wearing his most expensive suit, he sneered into the microphones. "She is nothing but a child. Do not be fooled. Languages are a trick, not power. Real power is building empires, not speaking words." But even as he spoke, the comments flooded in beneath every live broadcast. "He's scared of her." Words are power. She proved it. A billionaire shaking over a 14-year-old girl? Pathetic. That night, Danielle sat by the window, watching the Bronx lights flicker. She turned to her mother and whispered, "Mom, I think I already won." Grace held her close. "Baby, you didn't just win. You changed the game." By the end of the week, the story had reached every corner of the globe. News anchors in London replayed Danielle's flawless French. Bloggers in Beijing dissected her Mandarin. Talk shows in New York called her the prodigy from the Bronx. But for Hassan al-Mansouri, the billionaire who once laughed like a king, life had turned into a nightmare. Investors pulled back from deals. Politicians distanced themselves. His name, once synonymous with wealth and power, was now linked to arrogance and cruelty. Every headline paired his photo with Danielle's, the girl who humbled him. Still, Hassan refused to surrender. In one last attempt to reclaim control, he announced a global conference in Dubai. The world's media gathered, expecting him to crush the narrative once and for all. Grace begged her daughter not to go. "Danielle, please!" He's desperate. Desperate men are dangerous, but Danielle shook her head. "Mom, if I don't go, he wins by silence." "If I do, I win by truth." So they boarded a plane, mother and daughter, traveling on tickets paid for by an international youth foundation that had heard Danielle's story. When she walked onto the stage in Dubai, the world watched. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. Hassan sat at the opposite side of the hall, his smile tight, his eyes sharp. "This child," he said into the microphone, "is not a leader. She is not a thinker. She is a distraction. Do not mistake words for power." Then he gestured mockingly. "Go on, girl. Impress them with your tricks." The audience turned to Danielle. For a moment, the weight of it all pressed down. The lights, the cameras, the billionaire glaring at her like a storm. But then she remembered her mother's hands on hers, steady and strong. She'd lifted the microphone. "I came here not to impress," she said softly, "but to remind you. Power is not money. Power is not control. Power is the ability to connect, to speak across borders, across cultures, across walls men like you build to keep others out." Then, in front of the world, she began. Arabic, French, Mandarin, Russian, Italian. Her words flowed like rivers, one language into the next, her voice carrying not just sound but conviction. She spoke of justice, of dignity, of the invisible made visible. The hall rose to its feet. Applause thundered like a storm. Reporters scrambled to capture every second. Hashtags erupted online within minutes. And Hassan? He sat frozen. For the first time, no one was laughing with him. No one was nodding in agreement. He was alone, a giant toppled not by wealth or war, but by a 14-year-old black girl from the Bronx. Grace's tears streamed freely as she watched her daughter bow slightly, her small frame dwarfed by the massive stage, yet commanding it like she was born there. Later that night, as the world replayed Danielle's speech, one headline captured it best: "The cleaner's daughter who spoke truth to power." And in the quiet of their hotel room, Grace whispered, "You did it." "Baby?" Danielle smiled, her voice soft but unshaken. "No, Mom, we did." Her story proves that real power isn't money, it's knowledge, and no empire can stand against truth. If this journey inspired you, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and leave a comment below. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because the next one might change how you see the world.